Why do they pull away the moment you give them everything? Why does love fade the second it feels safe? You were told that honesty wins hearts, that vulnerability is power, that giving her your soul would make her stay. But what if everything you were taught about love is wrong? Freud saw it long before anyone dared say it out loud. Women do not fall for comfort. They fall for gravity, for a man who doesn't flinch, for a man who stands in silence, not weakness. And in this video, we're going to dismantle the biggest lie you've been sold. The lie that being emotionally open is enough to be truly desired. Because Freud pulled the curtain back on something many men still can't accept. A woman's longing isn't tied to security. It's pulled toward danger that stands indifferent to her. This isn't meant to insult or provoke. It's not cynicism. It's simply written into our human framework, into biology, into psychology. Freud, who spent his life decoding the hidden parts of the human psyche, asked one question over and over. What does a woman really want? And after years listening to wives, lovers, daughters, and temptresses, he offered the most unsettling conclusion of all. Even she doesn't completely know, but her instincts do. Her body remembers. Freud believed that desire, especially in women, wasn't governed by reason or morality or social expectations. It was primal, ever-shifting, and deeply authentic. He described female sexuality as an unknown continent, uncharted, mysterious, and forcibly silenced by generations of societal refinement. And in that silencing, he found something chilling. What a woman says she desires, and what actually stirs her, are often miles apart. She'll tell you she wants someone kind, but it's the one who vanished that she texts again. She'll say she wants to be heard, but the man who ignores her haunts her mind. She'll speak of wanting security, yet her heart pounds for the man who dances on the edge of disorder. Why? Because Freud saw that desire doesn't follow logic. It follows absence. It chases what slips through her fingers. And the man who offers himself too freely with all his feelings laid bare becomes too easy to read. He becomes familiar, unexciting, forgettable. Freud called this the compulsion to repeat a deep psychological pull, not toward healing, but toward reawakening old emotional injuries. Women shaped by millennia of evolutionary pressure to sift, test, and endure often feel drawn to the man who unsettles them emotionally, not out of cruelty, but instinct. Because it's in that unrest, when you don't hand over approval so quickly, when you don't bend to every emotional cue, when you stay rooted in your own mission, she feels the pulse of uncertainty. And in that space of uncertainty, attraction ignites. But nobody ever explained this to you. Instead, you were taught to be reachable, to open up, to send long texts, laying your heart bare, hoping your sincerity would earn her respect. And then you watched her pull away quietly, gradually, with no clear reason. You blamed yourself. But Freud would say the problem isn't you. It's what you were led to believe about women. He wrote that repression is at the core of civilization, especially when it comes to sexual impulses. But repression doesn't eliminate those desires. It twists them, forces them underground. And for women whose historical roles were linked to virtue home and obedience, that twisting led to a split self. On the surface, she's caring, refined, accommodating. But beneath, there's a storm, raw and free, drawn to exactly what culture told her to avoid. That's why the idea of the bad boy never fades. He symbolizes something ancient, a man who can't be controlled, who won't plead, whose essence isn't up for grabs. You've seen it happen. You offered her everything you could, and somehow it still didn't reach her. And yet she slipped away. Distant, disinterested, unmoved, because what she was after wasn't your openness. She was searching for your core. That part of you untouched by her emotional waves and quiet spells. The place inside that doesn't shift when she turns cold, that doesn't tremble when she steps back. What she longed to feel was your strength, not in the way you shielded her, but in how unmoved you could remain. Freud once said that anatomy is destiny, a phrase that's often twisted. He didn't mean we're prisoners of our biology. He meant that beneath the surface, powerful instincts and primal forces are already shaping our desires long before we're aware of them. And for women, that desire isn't neat, clean, or poetic. It's wild. And when a man grasps this, not just in thought, but in how he carries himself, how he simply exists, how he holds his silence, he becomes unforgettable. But the world taught you to fear that edge within you, to round it off in the name of being emotionally safe. Now you're left unsure. You ask yourself why she pulls away, why she challenges you, why she stirs things up without cause, why she distances herself just when things feel the most intimate. It's not harmony she's seeking. It's the part of you that won't break. It's the strength in you that could walk away and not look back. And when you give that up, when you trade it in for peace at any cost, you become the very man she begins to push away, a man who can be owned. Freud never set out to destroy love. He tried to uncover what lies beneath it. To him, love was always tangled up with struggle. Desire can't breathe without some tension. That he believed was modern man's heartache, he tries to be both magnetic and compliant, both powerful and agreeable, both commanding and emotionally polished. But those things cancel each other out. Desire lives in the imbalance. It needs friction. And once you give her everything too easily, the spark fades. She wants to let go, yes, but only into the hands of a man who can't be swayed. She wants to yield, but only to someone whose mission stands taller than her emotional tides. She wants to be chosen, but only by someone who doesn't need her to feel whole. Freud, despite all the debate he stirred, saw this with piercing clarity. He never faulted women. He pointed to the lies men were fed, the fantasies that kept them small, confused, and broken. You thought revealing your pain would anchor her. You thought that being steady, loyal, and emotionally rich would unlock her heart. But Freud would remind you what draws the feminine psyche isn't your openness, it's your mastery of yourself. Not dominance over her, but discipline over your own desires. It's your composure, your centeredness, your firm presence that awakens something deep inside her, not your words, not your longing. Take in something Freud spent his life examining. Women don't fall for your softness. What draws them is your ability to contain yourself. The man who feels desire but doesn't chase it. The man who faces temptation but holds steady. The man who can love but doesn't idolize it. That man in her unconscious holds a dangerous allure. And danger in Freud's view isn't about harm. It's about having power that doesn't cling. But you were trained to flip that script, to lead with need, to pour out your feelings, and call it courage. It's not really about strength. It's about how exposed you've become. When a man puts his soul on display before it's been forged in fire, when he's eager to be chosen before he's even discovered what he stands for, he stops being a man. He becomes a servant, waiting on a throne to choose him. But a woman can't fall in love with a servant. She might lean on him, she might use his loyalty, but her heart won't burn for him. As Freud explained, desire isn't born from comfort. It rises from tension, from the push and pull between craving and restraint. It's like a rhythm between hunger and holding back. This is why a woman often pulls away when she feels she's completely captured you. It's not out of malice. It's because certainty suffocates desire. You might believe that love thrives on openness, on handing over every secret, every fear, every bit of your emotional vulnerability. But Freud saw through that illusion. The unconscious isn't interested in how sincere you are. What it responds to is deeper symbolism. Power play, emotional contrast archetypes. She doesn't want to access every part of you. She wants to reach for what stays just out of her grasp. But you, the modern man armed with self-awareness and therapy speak, have become too easy to read, too emotionally accessible, too tame. In trying to be emotionally safe, you've vanished from her view as a passionate being, because safety alone doesn't stir passion. It doesn't create that burning need. It doesn't ignite the primal spark that says, "I trust this man enough to let go." That surrender lives deep in human history. You'll find it whispered in ancient legends, echoed in love stories, etched into every dream of feminine longing, not for a man who bows, but for one who masters his own nature. That's why Freud focused so much on the ego, and the superego, the parts of us that govern control. Because if a man lives only by his impulses, only chasing what he desires, then he isn't truly a man. He's just a slave to his urges, and no woman will bow to that. She might toy with him. She might take what she wants. But she won't surrender to him. She only surrenders to the flesh or to the soul when she sees a man who stands taller than his own appetites. That's the irony. You don't win her by following her lead. You win her by becoming the man who follows a calling bigger than any woman. But you've been handed the wrong blueprint. You were told women value emotional openness more than inner strength, that they want someone to listen more than someone to lead, that what they seek is equality, when in truth, they're drawn to contrast. So men today are left feeling erased, unsure, deflated. Because they behave in ways that extinguish attraction, then sit there bewildered when love turns distant. And what's worse, they turn the blame inward. They believe it's because they're not lovable enough. But if Freud were here, he'd tell you the real problem is misalignment with your own core with hers. She's not at ease either. She's tense, irritable, unfulfilled. What she aches for, whether she can name it or not, is a man she can't mold. A man who moves by principles, not moods. One who speaks not in constant explanations, but with clarity and purpose. And when she meets such a man, even if he doesn't match her checklist, even if he doesn't fit her fantasy, something deep inside her stirs. Her body remembers what her mind forgot. Here is someone I don't have to control to feel safe. Here is someone I can trust without needing to manage. Here is someone I can follow and not feel afraid. This kind of man doesn't cling to a woman for validation. He doesn't need her, and that's exactly why he can truly be with her. You don't become this man by binge-watching content or soaking up advice. You become him by rebuilding the very structure of your inner world. In Freud's terms, this is sublimation, transforming your raw, instinctive drives into elevated, purposeful action. Anger transforms into drive. Desire becomes discipline. Pain gives birth to something lasting. Through that process, you stop being a man who simply reacts to life and instead become a man who shapes it. She's drawn not to a man who checks boxes or sticks to a schedule, but to one who has confronted and conquered his own inner storms. The man who enters a room and doesn't need to speak to be heard, because his energy already tells the whole story. And when you chase her affection, she drifts further, not because she's being cruel, but because feminine desire withers under emotional pleading. What it craves is reverence. And reverence only rises toward the man who stands tall, not the one who bows. This is a truth Freud understood would not be welcomed. That a woman is not moved by your soul until she sees strength in your backbone. That love is not the spark of masculine power, but the reward for it. Her admiration must be earned not through constant reassurance, but through quiet authority, through the strength to hold steady, to refrain from emotional dependency. The moment you let go of your center just to make her feel emotionally secure, you've already given up the very thing she was drawn to in the first place. You were raised to lead with your heart. Freud would say, start with your spine, because when you trade your inner strength for emotional closeness, you don't win love, you earn quiet disapproval. She might not speak it, she might not even realize it, but it will show in the way she looks at you, in how her tone shifts, in the gradual fading of her admiration. Because no woman can truly long for a man who doesn't have his own steady pull. She's not testing you to be cruel. She tests because something deep inside her is searching. Searching for the man who stays grounded, the one who can say no calmly, who can walk away without theatrics, who can love without abandoning himself in the process. Freud called this the reality principle, the capacity to hold off on emotional gratification in pursuit of lasting power. A man who can't rein in his reactions, who jumps every time she goes cold or cries or pulls away, is not someone ready to be honored. He's still a boy seeking a mother in the body of a lover. This is the hard truth. She cannot play both mother and partner. One role will always cancel out the other. The moment she starts feeling like she's taking care of your emotional needs, the spark dies. You might think it was a specific action that pushed her away, but Freud would suggest otherwise. It wasn't what you did, it's what you stopped embodying. You stopped being a presence. You became a pattern, predictable, familiar. And feminine desire can't breathe in predictability. It needs wonder. It needs uncertainty. It needs that quiet edge. You can be kind. You can be faithful. But if your life doesn't move forward on its own momentum with or without her, she won't see a man. She'll see a placeholder, something optional. But this isn't a loss. It's the most freeing thing you could realize, because it means you don't have to become someone else. You just have to dig up what's been buried. Your mission, your consistency, your stillness, that stillness that doesn't demand to be noticed. That mission that doesn't ask for permission, that edge that stands without apology. Freud believed that fulfillment didn't lie in chasing pleasure, but in achieving mastery. Not mastery over others, but mastery over yourself. So the answer isn't to resent her for the tests. The answer is to rise above them. To let go of seeking approval and instead build a life that doesn't need it. She's not your reward. She's not your calling. She is the mirror of your own leadership. Lead yourself and she'll follow. Make her the center of your orbit and she'll flee. It's not because she lacks depth. It's because biology doesn't bend to fantasy. What Freud had the courage to confront, and what still echoes in relationships today, is the unsettling truth that love on its own isn't enough. Not unless it's backed by emotional strength, by the spark of polarity, by the kind of presence that commands psychological gravity. That's what fuels desire. That's what keeps connection alive when routine tries to wear it down. A man who establishes authority and earns respect before asking for affection will often receive both. But the one who chases love hoping it'll hand him respect usually ends up with neither. So here's the real invitation: not to grow cold, not to carry bitterness, but to remember. You were never meant to be passive. You weren't made to be emotionally consumed just to earn inconsistent affection. You're not here to plead for someone's loyalty. You're here to shape yourself into something uncommon, someone who doesn't fold at rejection, who can't be played, who stays untouched by anything that doesn't align with his deepest purpose. Because when that version of you emerges, when you move through the world, not with ego, But with calm certainty, something unexpected happens. The same women who once overlooked you begin to notice. The silence that once made them uneasy starts to draw them in. They can feel it that you've stopped needing them to feel whole. And that, strangely enough, is the very moment you become genuinely attractive. Freud's harsh insight wasn't that women are flawed, it's that they're attuned to a different signal. One that honors groundedness, not over-accommodation. One that's willing to surrender, but only to something solid enough to deserve it. And that measure of worth isn't found in how well you accommodate, but in how firmly you stand your ground. So stop seeking proof that you matter. Start living in alignment with what's true. Build a life so complete, so full of purpose that whether she stays or goes, the mission doesn't waver. That's the road to peace. Not a partnership rooted in fear, but one grounded in earned respect. Not love born of desperation, but of shared strength. If this message hit something deep inside you, if it reminded you of the man you used to be, or the man you're still becoming, then don't just click away. Let this be more than content. Let it be your turning point. Drop a like if you felt seen. Share it with someone who's forgotten their strength. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, because this space is for people who are done begging for love and ready to build a life that commands it. And if you want to help us keep this message alive, this quiet revolution against emotional weakness and mediocrity, check the link below. Every bit of support helps us speak what most won't dare to say. Remember, you're not here to wait for permission. You're not here to be chosen. You're here to become.